In this video, we're going to be building 5 different styles of trailing stops for your trading bot on NinjaTrader 8. The best part is this is all done with the NinjaTrader strategy builder, so there is no coding required. If you want to download these examples, they're going to be available at TradeSaber.com or on my Discord. Make sure you check it out, but there's going to be a lot of information here, so let's just jump right into it. Alright, and to kick things off, we're going to be building a simple trading bot on Strategy Builder, and this is just so we can test out our trailing stops. So to get to this screen, all you have to do is go to your NinjaTrader control panel, select New, and select Strategy Builder. And then from here, you want to make sure you have New Strategy selected, then select Next, and we can name this anything we want. So for this one, I'm just going to name it Set Trail, and it's going to be our first one, so I'm just going to say Set Trail 1. Then select Next. Now for these examples, I'm going to be using on price change, and this is because I want my stop to trail up anytime there is a price change. If you prefer to be on bar close, just know your stop will only move up once your bar closes. So for now, I'm going to select on price change and select Next. Additional data, I don't need any of this for these examples, so let's move on. In this page, you have your inputs and variables, and this is where you can assign certain variables. So for example, a bool, which is a true or false statement, a double, which is essentially a number with decimals, integer number with no decimals. These are going to be the variables where the user can select under the parameters. So just to show an example, let's go to the order entry buttons. These numbers that you see here under the parameters, these are going to be your inputs, whereas your variables, we're going to use those later on. These are mainly used to store a value that you might need later on. Again, we'll go through more examples later, but for this one right now, we're just going to add an input, and we're going to call it trail ticks. It's going to be an integer. Our default is going to be 10 because we're going to be setting this trail stop at 10 ticks below the current price. And minimum, let's keep it at 1 and select OK. And that's all we need for that. So let's select Next. And in this screen, these are going to be your conditions and your actions. And what happens here is you're just setting conditions that need to be met in order for an action to happen. So just to make this video shorter, I'm going to enter some very simple conditions, and those are going to trigger and then enter our trade. And just to make testing easier, I'm going to be adding all these same conditions for all of our examples today, but here you can essentially put in whatever you want. So first we'll hit add misc current state is equals to misc state real time, and this is just while testing to make sure all our trades are in real time so we can see them as they happen. The next one, I want to make sure our position is flat, so don't enter trades unless there are no other current trades present. So our current market position is equals to market position flat. The next thing I like to do is make sure no trades get entered as soon as I exit another trade. So to do that, we hit this group button down here. You select add, go to misc, bar since exit is equals to numeric value, and for this one I want to say -1. And we select -1 because NinjaTrader assigns the bar since exit to a value of -1 when there's no prior entry. So this will allow us to enter our first trade because there are no other trades prior to this one. So select OK, then we add misc bar since exit again, and then this time we want to make sure it is greater than numeric value 1. So this, once we enter a trade, we want to make sure there's at least 1 bar since our exit to enter again, and we hit OK, and that adds it to our conditions. And just to keep it simple, I'm going to do a price close of the 0 candle, which the 0 on price change is going to be the most current candle. And what I'm going to say is when it's greater or equal to the high of the candle number 1, which is this candle right here, then we're going to execute our action. So these are going to be our entry conditions for all of our examples today. You don't need to have these. You can make these whatever you want for your own strategy. These are just to keep things simple for the sake of this video. Okay, next we are going to do our action, which is going to be a basic order management, enter long, hit OK. Okay, from here we select next, and we have our stop and targets. And the first example is going to be super basic. We're just going to select the trailing stop option. And for this example, we're going to select ticks and our value. Now, this is where the input variable comes into play. We can select set, user input, and trail ticks. And now we just hit OK. And you don't need to unlock your code. You don't need to finish this. You can just hit the compile button here. And once this pops out, you are good to go. And let's load it up to our chart and test it out. So all you have to do, right click on the chart, strategies, scroll down to your strategy. So we can select the set trail 1, double click on that. And here is our user input. And here you can change this to whatever you want. So 10 ticks, 20 ticks, 30 ticks, whatever you want. Let's keep that at 10. We'll hit apply. So now here, let's just hit enable. We'll slow this down a bit and hit play. So when this candle goes above this candle, like right there, it enters our trade and it sets our stop 10 ticks below the current price. And as the price goes higher, you're going to see it's just going to be trailing by 10 ticks the whole time. And once price reverses, it's not going to go down 10 ticks. It's going to stay right where it's at. And it's just going to follow that up until it gets stopped.
Order filled. Order filled.
And yeah, that's basically how it works. Just keeps trailing by 10 ticks until it gets stopped out. Not much to that one. It's super basic, but it's a good starting point if you've never used any of these before. But let's move on to our next example. And for our next trail example, we're going to be using a parabolic trail set method. And to set that up, it's pretty similar to our last example. Let's say parabolic trail set. And this is our second example. We'll call it 2. Again, price change. Trail ticks, we're keeping this the same as well. And for our conditions and actions, we're keeping these the same just to keep everything simple. So from here, select next. Then our stop and targets, we select add. And here you see 2 different options. You see parabolic stop and parabolic stop total position. So NinjaTrader is a little bit vague when it comes to the description of the parabolic stop. But essentially from what I could find is it uses a similar calculation as the parabolic SAR indicator. And the main difference between the parabolic stop and the stop total position is the stop total position will use the default settings of the parabolic SAR indicator. I'm going to put it right up on the screen here so you can see it. And while just the parabolic stop, you can adjust these settings as well. And another thing to note is when you're using these parabolic trail stop methods is they're going to differ slightly from the indicator itself. The indicator will use data from the bars, while these trail stop methods are going to use data from your position fill entry. So where your stop is set is going to be different from the indicator itself. But for this example, let's go with the parabolic stop and we'll pick our own acceleration. We'll do the exact same as the indicator itself. So I believe this is 0.02, 0.2, and 0.02. And these are usually the default settings. And this would be the same as if you pick the total position as well. Then our value for our ticks, we can do our user input, which is 10. And we can hit compile and test this out. So our parabolic trail set 2, apply and hit enable. So again, we're waiting till this candle closes above.
Order filled.
And the trail is going to be a little bit different more or less based on the actual indicator with slightly different data. And let's wait till we get stopped out.
Order filled.
Oh. And that's how the parabolic stop works. Now let's move on to the next one. So in our last example was a parabolic set trail method, and while it followed a similar formula to the parabolic SAR indicator, it doesn't follow it to the T. So now, what if you actually want to follow the indicator itself? In this example, I'm going to show you how to do just that. Open the strategy builder, going to do on price change. Now, for the variables, I'm not going to put any inputs on this one, but I am going to need a variable that's going to store a value. And it'll make sense once I get to the next portion. But first, let's add. We need a double, and let's call this my SAR stop. And just hit OK, and next. Okay, so here we have our same parameters, but now because we are following an indicator, we can't use our stop and target set methods. So we're going to have to do things a little bit different here. The first thing I want to do after we enter long is I want to set our variable to a value of where our stop is going to be initially set at. Just if that doesn't make sense, just give me a minute. So we're going to go to MISC, select our double, and we're going to set it to the strategy. Let's do our average position price, and we are going to say ticks because we are in a long position. We're going to say -10 ticks. What this is going to do is it's going to set this double variable, and it's going to equal the average position price we get filled at minus the 10 ticks. And I'll show you why that's important in our next set. So you go down here to this plus symbol, and here we're going to make our exit method. So you want to first make the condition, and this one I'm going to keep it simple. So if our current market position is equals to long, so if we are currently in a long trade, then we're going to set an exit long position by a stop order, and our stop price is going to be the variable we just selected over here. Position average price minus 10 ticks. That is the price where our stop is going to be set at. So let's hit compile and just test this part before we move on to the next one. So right now, I'm not looking for it to trail the parabolic SAR just yet. I just want to make sure it sets a entry order and it sets our stop. So,
Order filled.
okay, so when it entered our trade, it set our stop at the 10 ticks below our average price. So we know that portion works. So let's
Order
close
filled.
that, disable, and let's move on to the next part. So here you want to create another set. And here we're going to set another set of conditions, and our goal is to change this variable into the same price as our indicator. So let's go to our set 3, add. So again, you want to make sure the current market position is long. All right, and here is where things get just a little bit tricky. So let's look at our chart and notice here how we previously entered a trade, but the parabolic SAR is still above our current price. So we want to make sure it's not trailing the indicator if it's above the price, because that would cause an error. So how we do that is we go to our parabolic SAR indicator, and we're looking at the most current candle. And here you can also plot on the chart, so you can actually get rid of this indicator altogether. Also here you can make separate input variables if you want to change this right from your parameters. I don't want to waste time, I'm leaving it as is. But from here you want to make sure your parabolic SAR is less than or equal to the low of the current candle. So when your parabolic SAR is less than or equal to the low of the most current candle. So that's going to ensure it's actually on the bottom when you're going long. And now the next step is, if you want to make sure your stop when it gets set at minus 10 ticks or whatever you choose. So for example, let's say your stop gets set right around this line. When your parabolic SAR opens, it's most likely going to be under that stop. So it's going to be somewhere in this area. If you want to make sure when that parabolic SAR opens up, your stop all of a sudden doesn't move down here, you want to create another condition that's going to prevent just that from happening. And how you do that is, again, you go to the parabolic SAR, and let's plot that on the chart as well. And this time you want to make sure that your parabolic SAR is going to be above your previously set stop. And how you do that is you go greater, user, variable, and because we already have this value stored in this double, we can just select that. And now we're going to ensure the parabolic SAR is below the low of the current candle, and it's going to be above our initial stop. Now from here, we do not set another exit order. From here, we simply just take that same double, and now we can actually just give it the same value as the indicator itself. And we'll plot on chart again. Okay, and I'm going to move this set 3 to the middle, and let's run through it just before we put it on the chart. Your set 1 is your initial conditions. So these need to happen, and then you enter a trade, and then you set a double to where you want your initial stop to be. So let's hit play.
Order filled.
Okay, so here you entered long. This double is now this price, and now when the position size is long, so you're in a trade, you set an exit stop market for this price that you set right here. So that's 10 ticks below your opening price. Now let's hit play, and now it's not going to move your stop because the parabolic SAR is still above. So your stop is going to remain right here. Now let's speed this up a little bit. So here you can see the parabolic SAR has finally gone below the current candle, but because it's still below your initial stop, it's still not moving. So this is true now, this is true. We are waiting for this condition to be true. And right here. So now that your parabolic SAR is above your initial stop, all of these are true. It sets your double right to the indicator itself. And now because your position is long, it's going to keep setting your stop at the indicator. And let's just go till we get stopped.
Order filled.
And that's how you set your stop to an indicator. In this case, the parabolic SAR. Another trail stop method that I see pop up quite often is, how do you trail the low or the high of each previous candle? And in this example, I'm going to show you how to do just that. So let's call this the high-low bar trail, and this is number 4, I believe. And again, we're going to do on price change, next, next. And here we're going to set a variable, and it's going to be very similar to the parabolic indicator trail method. We're going to set a double. Let's call this my stop low. And I'm going to set a input variable here. And this is going to be tick offset. In default, let's put that at 0. Minimum, let's give it no minimum. And what your tick offset is going to do is, if you want to trail the low of each candle, minus 1 tick, 2 tick, 3 tick, whatever you want, that's going to let you do that. So let's hit next. And again, from this screen, you have your same conditions to enter. And once these are true, you enter long. Now, similar to the previous one, we are going to set my stop low variable, or the double, to the price, which is the low of the previous candle. So you say low 1, and we are going to give it an offset of the ticks set to our user input integer. Okay, and now you need a second set. And from here, we set our conditions to set our stop order. So when the current market position is equal to long, then we can set a exit long position by a stop order. And the stop price is going to be our user variable that we defined when we entered the trade. So hit OK. And now we need a way to update this on every single bar. So again, we need a third set, and I want to say when the current market position is equals to long, then our same my stop low double now gets updated to the low of the previous bar with a tick offset of our user input, and hit OK. So every time a new candle opens, it's going to update this variable to the most recent previous candle. Now let's hit compile and test it out and see if we run into any issues from this. So let's load up our strategy and high-low trail 4, and let's give this a tick offset of -5. Enable.
Order filled.
Okay, so we got it filled, and our stop got set to 5 ticks below the low of the previous candle. Let's hit play again, and once this new candle opened, now it's 5 ticks below this candle. This candle opened 5 ticks below this one. Okay, looking good.
Order filled.
Okay, so we get stopped out, and let's make sure it works again.
Order filled.
So here it trails again, but let's look at this example. Did you notice how this candle was lower than this candle? But because of our offset, it never got stopped out. But now when this new candle opens, it actually moved our stop down based on this candle, which in most cases, I know a lot of people would want to keep their stop right at the highest point. So let's see if we can fix that. So let's go back to our set 3, where we update our double variable that stores the price of our stop. And one way to prevent the stop from going back is to set another condition where it needs to make sure the price is going to be higher, or else it's not going to move. And how we do that is we go to add, we make sure our price, the low one that we're looking at, and here we're looking at the tick offset as well. So we're looking at the exact same thing. Here we want to make sure that it is greater or equal to our previous stored value. So this way, if the new value that's being looked at is less than our previous value, it's not going to become true. It's not going to update our variable. So when it sets our stop, it's going to be based on the previous stop. We're going to run it live and show you how that works. So let's go here to
Order canceled.
Disable and re-enable.
Order filled.
Okay, so now we submitted the order. Our entry or our stop order is 5 ticks below the previous candle. Okay, new candle, it's the low is higher. So the low, which is this one, is higher than the previous low. So it moved it up. And now here we have our low one right here with the offset and everything. It was actually less than our previously stored value, which is here. We did not update our stop to the newest candle, so it still remains as the previously stored value. And here when it sets our stop, it's still based on the previous value, and that's why it did not move up.
Order filled. Order filled.
You eventually get stopped and you're good to go. And that's how you set a stop based on the previous candle's low. Alright, so for number 5, we have probably the most requested one, and that is using ATR for your trail stop. ATR Trail number 5. And this one we'll do on price change again. So here we're going to need a few variables. First, you need to define the ATR period you're looking at. ATR period. And default, I think most people will look at 14. Minimum, we'll say 1. Cool. Next, if you want to multiply your ATR. So let's say you're looking at a 14 ATR period. You want to take that value and multiply it by 2, and that's your stop. Here you can set that. So let's set a, not a bool, a double, and ATR multiply, and we will set that to, let's do 2, just because it's an easy number. And we'll set the minimum at 0.1, because if you multiply by 0, it's going to come out as 0. Next, you need some private variables to store your values. So I'm going to follow similar concepts. I'm going to say ATR stop, and that's going to be a double, and we'll set that at that. Now, I'm also going to use another variable, and we'll use this ATR price. And this is going to store your actual ATR price by itself with the multiply, the period, everything. I want to store it separately from the where the actual stop is going to be set. So let's do that and hit next. Okay, so we have the same conditions, and now when we enter long, we want to do two things. First, we want to define our ATR price with the multiply added onto it. And we also need to define where our stop will be set based on that ATR. And how we do that is we want to go to our ATR price, and we're going to set the price as the indicator, which is ATR. Next, we want to plot this on the chart, that's fine. And our period, we can set this to our user input, which is our ATR period. Next, we want to do our offset, and our offset is a multiplier. So you want to select the multiply symbol, which is the little star, and we want to set that as the user input ATR multiply. And we hit OK. Okay, and that sets our ATR price. Next, we need to define what price level our stop is going to be set at. So again, you select add, and this time we select ATR stop, and we set this, and we're going to set it to the average position price. And here we can do minus set our user variable, which is our ATR price, and hit OK. So what I'm telling it is our ATR price is equals to the ATR itself times the multiplier, and our ATR stop price, this is where our stop is actually going to be set at, is our average positions price minus the ATR price up here. Okay, so now we have those numbers. Now let's make another set and set our exit stop order. So we're going to add, and we need to make sure the current market position is in a long position. Once that happens, we can set our exit stop order, and we will set the stop price to our ATR stop. So once you enter into a trade, you get your variables, you're in a long position, you set an exit stop market. So let's hit compile and see how this functions right now. Okay, and up here we can select our period and our multiplier. So let's leave it at that. Apply. When we hit enable, we can see the ATR is automatically added. And let's hit play.
Order filled.
Okay, so we got filled at 40.6675. Our current ATR, if you look at the bottom screen here, is 3.58. So 3.58 times our multiplier, which is 2. So 7.16. 40.66.75 minus 7.16 is 40.59.59. It's going to round to the nearest tick when we're dealing with futures. So it's set to 40.59.75. So we know those values are working. It's setting the stop properly. Because we don't have anything to update our stop with, it's not going to keep trailing. So let's see if we can fix that. So the first thing I want to do is make sure our ATR price that's storing our actual ATR times the multiplier is always constantly updated to the most current candle. And how we do that is we start another set. And again, you only really need this when you're inside a position. So our current market position is equals to long. Then you want to set your ATR price is set again to the ATR, and you got to make sure you select your variables. So your ATR period times your ATR multiply. And that looks good. Let's hit OK. So now our ATR price is going to constantly keep updating every time there's a new candle. And next, we have to make sure we keep updating our ATR stop, because this is the actual level where your stop is going to be set at. And for this one, let's create another set. And again, you want to make sure you're in a long position. Market position long. And now this is going to be trailing the most current price at all times, but you want to make sure it's not going to be trailing down. So much like the low of the previous bar, like we did in the previous section, we want to make sure there's a variable that prevents your stop from going the opposite way. So we're going to follow a very similar pattern. So from here, we go the close of the most current candle. So this is going to be the most current price. Our ATR offsets, so our user variables, our ATR price. We want to make sure that is going to be greater than our previously stored ATR stop. So what I'm telling it here is our current price minus our ATR price. So that's the ATR with the multiply. That needs to be greater than our previously stored ATR value where we set our stop at. So once it's greater, then it's going to move our stop up. But if it's less than the value of our stop, then it's not going to make this condition true, and it's not going to move our stop down. So here, when these conditions are true, we are going to set this to the price close minus our ATR price. And let's hit compile, and we'll run it through live so it's a little bit easier to understand. So step 1, these conditions become true. We enter a trade, we set our ATR price, and we set our ATR stop level. Next, because we are in a long position and we have defined our ATR stop level, it sets an exit order right at your position fill minus the ATR. So you can see it moving up constantly, and that's because the price keeps moving up. But see, when it retraces, your stop is going to stay stationary because it's only going to move up when the current price minus the ATR is higher than your current price. And that's how you build an ATR trailing stop with Strategy Builder. Hope you guys found this useful. If I'm missing anything or you guys want to see other examples, let me know in the comments down below. But that's it for today. Take care. Enjoy.